The massive crystal dome of the Galactic Council chamber sparkled with the light of 3 suns. 200 alien representatives sat in rising circular tiers, their seats arranged like a giant bowl reaching toward the stars. At the center of this grand space stood a single human, James Harris, Earth's ambassador to the galaxy. "You expect us to believe," High Commander Reed's voice boomed through the chamber, "that humanity is ready to join the Galactic Council." His tall, silver-skinned form towered over the human ambassador. "Your species barely understands 4-dimensional travel." Laughter rippled through the chamber. Some aliens didn't even try to hide their amusement. They pointed their various appendages at Harris and made sounds that their universal translators converted into unmistakable mockery. Harris stood straight, his plain black suit a stark contrast to the flowing, shimmering robes of the alien representatives. He kept his face neutral, though his hands tightened slightly behind his back. "With respect, High Commander, humanity has made significant advances in dimensional physics over the past decade." This only brought more laughter. A bug-like representative from the 3rd tier clicked its mandibles. "They think breaking light speed with primitive fold drives is an achievement." More clicking followed, which the translator rendered as chittering laughter. High Commander Reed raised one of his 4 hands, and the chamber fell silent. "Ambassador Harris, let me be clear. The youngest spacefaring race in this chamber mastered 5-dimensional travel 3 centuries ago. The most advanced among us," he gestured to a group of floating crystalline beings, "routinely traverse 6 dimensions for afternoon shopping trips." Harris nodded slowly. "We understand the gap in technological achievement, Commander. That's precisely why we seek to learn from." "Learn." A voice cut through the air. War Leader Stone of the Stellar Dominion rose from his seat. His massive red-scaled form cast a shadow across the chamber floor. "Your species needs to learn how to survive first." His yellow eyes narrowed. "The galaxy is not a teaching ground for primitive races who think breaking the light barrier makes them special." More laughter filled the chamber. Harris noticed how some representatives were recording this moment with their neural devices. No doubt this would become entertainment across the galaxy. The silly humans thinking they could join the Grand Council. "Perhaps," Harris spoke clearly, ensuring his words carried to every corner of the chamber, "the Council might consider a probationary membership. Earth has much to offer in terms of cultural exchange and—" "Cultural exchange." War Leader Stone's laugh was like thunder. "Your culture is barely out of its stone age by galactic standards. You still use verbal speech as your primary communication method." High Commander Reed floated down from his elevated position, his silver robes rippling in ways that seemed to defy normal physics. He stopped just feet from Harris, towering over him. "Ambassador, let me be kind. Your species has potential. In perhaps another 1,000 years, you might be ready for preliminary discussions about observer status in the Council." Harris felt the weight of thousands of alien eyes on him. Some looked at him with amusement, others with pity, and a few, like War Leader Stone, with barely concealed contempt. "We appreciate the Council's candid feedback," Harris said, his voice steady. "Earth will continue its development at its own pace." "Yes, do that," Reed said, his tone dripping with condescension. "And please, don't hurry on our account. We wouldn't want you to strain your limited understanding of dimensional physics." As Harris turned to leave the chamber, the laughter started again. He walked with measured steps, neither too fast nor too slow. His neural implant recorded everything. Every laugh, every mocking comment, every dismissive gesture. This was exactly what Earth's leaders had expected. Exactly what they had planned for. In his pocket, Harris's quantum communicator vibrated once. A simple message from Luna Base scrolled across his neural display. "Project Aurora is ready." Harris allowed himself a small smile as he reached the chamber's exit. Let them laugh. They had no idea what humanity had discovered about the 7th dimension. No idea at all. The crystal doors closed behind him, cutting off the sound of galactic amusement. In a few weeks, that laughter would stop. and the galaxy would never be the same again. Deep beneath the lunar surface, in a facility that officially didn't exist, Project Director Anna Wells stood before a massive holographic display. The image showed a strange object that seemed to bend the very light around it. A ship that wasn't quite there, existing partially in dimensions that human eyes were never meant to see. "Status report," she said, her voice carrying across the circular command center where dozens of Earth's brightest minds worked at curved monitoring stations. Dr. Marcus Blake looked up from his console, his tired eyes bright with excitement. "The seventh-dimensional matrices are stable, Director. We've finally solved the quantum collapse issue that was causing the reality distortions." Wells walked closer to his station, her footsteps echoing in the chamber. "In simple terms, Doctor, remember how the Council likes to call us primitive?" A small smile played at her lips. Blake laughed softly. "Simply put, we've built something impossible. The aliens think dimensional travel means moving through higher dimensions. We've figured out how to control them instead." The main door slid open with a soft hiss. Ambassador Harris walked in, still wearing his formal suit from the council meeting. Everyone turned to look at him, knowing he'd just come from facing the galaxy's most powerful beings. "How did they react?" Wells asked, though she already knew the answer. "Exactly as expected," Harris said, loosening his tie. "They laughed. A lot." The Stellar Dominion's representative was particularly amused. He walked to the center of the room, looking up at the holographic ship. "Is she ready?" Wells nodded toward the far wall, which suddenly became transparent, revealing an enormous underground chamber. There, floating in a sea of strange energies, was the real version of the hologram, the Hyperion. Its surface seemed to shift and change, as if the metal itself couldn't decide which dimension it wanted to exist in. "We're running final checks now," Wells said. 20 years of work, trillions in secret funding, and the best minds on Earth. All for a ship that the Council's sensors won't even recognize as technology. They'll probably think it's a primitive rocket when they first see it. Blake stepped away from his console and joined them at the window. "That's because they're looking for the wrong things. They built their entire civilization on the idea that higher dimensions are roads to travel through. We discovered they're more like tools to shape reality itself." In the chamber below, technicians in specialized suits moved around the Hyperion, taking readings with devices that had been invented specifically for this project. The ship's surface rippled like water whenever they got too close, protecting itself with automatic dimensional shifts. "The Council thinks we're barely able to handle four-dimensional calculations," Wells said, touching a control panel that brought up the ship's core diagnostics. "They never ask how we learned to do them so quickly. They never wondered why we seemed to understand higher mathematics in ways that were different from their own." Harris watched a particular reading that showed 7 different numerical sequences, each representing the ship's interaction with a different dimension. "Because they think there's only one way to do things. Their way. The way it's been done for thousands of years. Their ships punch through dimensions," Blake explained, pulling up a simulation on a nearby screen. "Brute force. Incredibly advanced brute force, but still just forcing their way through. The Hyperion." He paused, searching for the right words. "She dances with dimensions, works with them. And when necessary, she can change their very nature within a localized space." Wells checked her watch, an old habit from days when time was simpler, before they learned to bend it. "Commander Ray will be here in an hour for her final briefing. The Hyperion's first real test is in 2 days." She turned to Harris. "Will the Dominion take the bait?" Harris nodded grimly. "Stone all but promised to teach humanity a lesson in survival. Their fleet is probably already on the way." He looked at the ship again, its surface now calm like a mirror. "They think they're coming to crush a primitive species. Instead, they're about to learn why humans were able to progress so quickly." In the chamber below, the Hyperion's surface rippled once more, as if anticipating the coming battle. Humanity's greatest secret was about to change the galaxy forever. one dimension at a time. War Leader Stone stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Dominion's Pride, watching the holographic display of Earth's solar system. His massive red-scaled form cast long shadows in the dim light of the tactical room. Around him, his crew worked in respectful silence, monitoring the approach of their 1,000-ship fleet. "Such a primitive system," he growled, his yellow eyes fixed on the blue planet. "They don't even have proper orbital defenses." He turned to his tactical officer. "How many human colonies have we destroyed so far?" The officer, a smaller member of their reptilian species, checked the data streams flowing through his neural link. 3 outposts in the past week, War Leader. The humans evacuated before we arrived at each one. Stone's tail lashed in frustration. They run like prey. At least they know their place. He expanded the tactical display, showing the fleet's formation. Time until we reach their home system. 6 hours at current speed, War Leader. In the Galactic Council's observation chamber, High Commander Reed watched the same tactical display with mild interest. Several other council members floated or sat nearby, treating the coming battle like entertainment. "Should we not intervene?" asked one of the crystalline beings, its form shimmering with concerned colors. "The humans are clearly outmatched." Reed waved one of his 4 hands dismissively. "This is how species learn their place in the galaxy. The Dominion will destroy a few human ships, maybe damage one of their cities, and humanity will understand they need another 1,000 years of development before they can play with the adults." The crystalline being pulsed with doubtful colors, but said nothing more. Back on Luna Base, Commander Lisa Ray sat in a briefing room with Director Wells and Dr. Blake. The same tactical display showing the Dominion fleet filled one wall, but their expressions showed no fear. 1,000 ships, Ray said, studying the formation, all of them equipped with 5-dimensional drives. Their flagship has 6-dimensional capability. She looked at Blake. "Will the Hyperion systems be able to handle that many targets?" Blake nodded, pulling up technical diagrams on another screen. "The 7th dimension gives us near-infinite possible attack vectors. Remember, Commander, we're not just moving through dimensions like they do. We're changing how they work." "Explain it to me again," Ray said, leaning forward. "In combat terms." Wells stepped in, using simple hand gestures to illustrate. "Their ships are like fish swimming in the ocean. They're very good at moving through the water. Our ship is like someone who can change what water is. We can make their part of the ocean become air or stone or nothing at all." Ray nodded slowly. "And they won't see it coming because their sensors are only looking for dimensional travel, not dimensional manipulation." "Exactly," Blake said. "They're looking for ripples in the water. We're changing the fundamental nature of reality itself within our operational zone." A quiet alarm sounded, and the tactical display updated. Wells checked the new data and straightened. "They're moving faster than expected. The Dominion fleet will be here in 4 hours." She turned to Ray. "Are you ready?" Ray stood, her expression determined. "I've trained in the simulator for 2 years. I know the Hyperion better than I know myself." She smiled slightly. "And I've been looking forward to wiping that smug look off War Leader Stone's face." "Remember," Blake cautioned, "we only have one shot at this. If we reveal our 7th-dimensional technology, too soon or too late, the entire plan fails. The galaxy needs to see exactly what humanity is capable of." Wells touched a control panel, and one wall became transparent, showing the Hyperion waiting in its dock. The ship's surface was perfectly still now, like a predator ready to strike. "The Dominion thinks they're coming to teach us a lesson," Ray said, watching her ship. "Instead, they're about to learn why humanity took a different path to the stars. Why we looked at their dimensional technology and saw not just roads to travel, but tools to reshape reality itself." In the distance, nearly invisible against the starlit lunar surface, final preparations were being made. The trap was set. Now they just had to wait for their arrogant enemies to spring it. The Dominion fleet appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system in a magnificent display of light and energy. 1,000 ships, their dimensional drives creating ripples in spacetime that any advanced race could detect. War Leader Stone wanted everyone to see their arrival, especially the Galactic Council observers. Impressive entrance, High Commander Reed commented from the Council observation chamber. The humans' primitive sensors must be overwhelmed by the energy signatures. He and the other council members watched through their advanced monitoring systems as the fleet approached. Stone's voice boomed across all communication channels, deliberately using simple radio waves so the humans could hear him. People of Earth, your time of judgment has come. Surrender your colonies and accept your place as a primitive species, or face extinction. In the Hyperion's cockpit, Commander Ray sat quietly, running final checks on systems that the aliens wouldn't even believe existed. Her neural link with the ship felt different from regular pilots' interfaces. Instead of just controlling the ship, she could feel the dimensions themselves, like new senses she never knew she had. All systems are green. Dr. Blake's voice came through her comm. The dimensional matrices are stable. Remember, Commander, they'll only be able to see the outer shell. To them, we'll look like a basic metal cylinder with primitive engines. Ray smiled. Good. Let them underestimate us one last time. She took a deep breath, opening lunar dock doors now. The surface of the moon seemed to split open as the hidden base revealed itself. The Hyperion rose slowly, deliberately looking as simple and unthreatening as possible. Its true nature remained hidden, its seventh-dimensional technology invisible to even the most advanced alien sensors. In the Dominion flagship, War Leader Stone burst out laughing. That's their defense. One small ship. He zoomed in on the Hyperion, his sensors showing what appeared to be a primitive vessel barely worth noticing. They insult us by sending such a weak response. The Council observation chamber erupted in similar amusement. Perhaps we should stop this now, Reed said, trying to contain his laughter. This is beyond primitive. It's almost sad. But Ambassador Harris, who had been quietly watching from a corner of the chamber, stepped forward. The Council recognizes humanity's right to defend itself, correct? No matter how primitive our methods might appear. Reed waved a hand dismissively. Of course, Ambassador. Watch your species learn its final lesson. He turned to the other council members. This will be educational for future primitive races who think they can rush their development. The Hyperion moved forward slowly, still maintaining its simple appearance. Ray's hands moved across control surfaces that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Target locked on their flagship. Dimensional fields are ready, waiting for final authorization. In the Luna base control room, Director Wells looked at the tactical display one last time. Everything was positioned perfectly. The arrogant Dominion fleet, the watching council members, and humanity's secret weapon, hiding in plain sight. Commander Ray, Wells said clearly, you are authorized to demonstrate humanity's understanding of dimensional physics. Show them what the seventh dimension can really do. Ray's fingers danced across the controls. With pleasure, Director. She took one last look at the massive fleet ahead of her, their ships glowing with what they thought was advanced technology. Beginning Operation Paradigm Shift. The Hyperion's surface began to ripple, but not in any way the alien sensors could understand. It wasn't moving through dimensions like their ships did. It was about to change how dimensions worked within its sphere of influence. What are they doing? Stone asked, squinting at his sensors. Their ship is flickering somehow, but that's impossible with their level of technology. In the council chamber, the advanced beings suddenly fell silent. Something was happening that their sensors couldn't explain, couldn't even detect properly. Reality itself seemed to be changing around the human ship. Impossible, Reed whispered, all four hands gripping his console. They can't be. They wouldn't dare. But they would. And they had. Humanity's moment of revelation was about to begin. Reality bent. There was no other way to describe it. The space around the Hyperion began to twist in ways that made both organic eyes and artificial sensors struggle to understand what they were seeing. Commander Ray felt the power flow through her neural connection to the ship. The seventh dimension opened up around her like a new color that had always existed, but that no one had ever seen before. Through her link, she could feel the structure of space-time becoming soft, malleable. By the first stars, War Leader Stone whispered, his yellow eyes wide as his sensors tried and failed to make sense of what was happening. What is this primitive trickery? In the council chamber, the advanced beings were no longer laughing. The crystalline representatives had shifted to colors that indicated deep distress. High Commander Reed's silver skin had taken on a pale, almost white shade. "This is wrong," Reed said, his voice shaking. "Their understanding of dimensional physics is barely past 4 dimensions. They can't. They shouldn't." The Hyperion began to move, but not in any way a ship should move. Instead of traveling through space, it seemed to fold space around itself. Where normal ships, even 6-dimensional ones, had to follow certain rules of reality, the Hyperion simply rewrote those rules as it went. "Initial test successful," Ray reported calmly. "Beginning demonstration phase 1. Her fingers moved across control surfaces that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, targeting Dominion Fleet's forward section. The space between the Hyperion and 3 Dominion ships suddenly changed. There was no flash of light, no beam of energy, no traditional weapon fire. Instead, the laws of physics within that space simply became different. The Dominion ships' energy shields, designed to work under normal universal laws, disappeared as if they had never existed. "Impossible," Stone roared, pounding his command console. "All ships, open fire. Destroy that human vessel." 1,000 energy beams lanced out from the Dominion fleet, but the space around the Hyperion twisted again, and the weapons fire seemed to curve away into dimensions that shouldn't exist, vanishing completely. In the Luna base control room, Dr. Blake watched the sensor readings with tears in his eyes. "It's beautiful," he whispered. 20 years of work, and it's more perfect than we imagined. The 7th dimension isn't just another layer of space. It's the dimension that controls how all other dimensions interact. Director Wells nodded, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Commander Ray, proceed with Phase 2. Show them exactly what humanity has learned about the nature of reality." The Hyperion's surface rippled like water, and suddenly it was everywhere and nowhere at once. The ship existed in multiple dimensional states simultaneously, something that the alien sensors reported as completely impossible. "Their ship," one of the council members cried out. It's rewriting local spacetime. They're not traveling through dimensions. They're changing how dimensions work." Ray allowed herself a small smile as she activated the ship's main system. The Hyperion didn't fire weapons in any traditional sense. Instead, it created a bubble of altered reality around 10 Dominion ships. Inside that bubble, the normal laws of physics simply ceased to apply. The enemy vessels found themselves in a space where their technology couldn't function, where the very principles they were built on no longer existed. The affected Dominion ships hung helpless in space, their crews watching in horror as their advanced technology became useless as stone. They weren't destroyed. They were simply transformed into temporary monuments to humanity's true understanding of dimensional physics. "This is Commander Ray to the Dominion fleet," she broadcast on all frequencies. "What you're witnessing is humanity's work with the 7th dimension. We don't just travel through dimensions like you do. We change them. Rewrite them. Control them." She paused, letting that sink in. "Would you like to see what else we can do?" The once mighty Dominion fleet began to back away, their formation breaking as fear replaced arrogance. In the council chamber, the laughter had been replaced by stunned silence. Humanity hadn't just caught up to the galaxy's advanced races. They had surpassed them in ways that no one had thought possible. War Leader Stone stared at his fleet's sensor readings in disbelief. 10 of his best ships floated powerless in space, caught in zones where reality itself had been rewritten. His tactical officer had gone completely silent, yellow eyes wide with fear as readings showed things that should not be possible. "Launch all fighters," Stone roared, his tail lashing in fury. "Surround that human vessel. They can't change reality everywhere at once." 500 fighter craft poured out of the Dominion ships, their 5-dimensional drives creating a web of energy signatures around the Hyperion. Stone watched with desperate hope as they closed in from all directions. In the Hyperion's cockpit, Commander Ray actually smiled. "They still don't understand," she said softly. Through her neural link, she could feel the 7th dimension like an ocean of possibilities, each ripple a different way that reality could work. "Commander," Dr. Blake's voice came through the comm. "You are cleared for full demonstration of the Hyperion's capabilities. Show them exactly what 7th-dimensional control means." Ray's hands moved across her control panels, touching points in space that existed in multiple dimensions at once. "Initiating reality cascade," she reported calmly. "Establishing 7th-dimensional matrix." The space around the Hyperion began to change in waves. The first wave turned energy weapons into harmless light. The second wave made shield systems protect against threats that no longer existed. The third wave changed how matter itself behaved within the affected space. In the council chamber, High Commander Reed watched in horror as his most advanced sensors tried to make sense of what they were seeing. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They're not just changing one aspect of reality. They're rewriting the fundamental laws of physics themselves." The Dominion fighters found themselves in a space where their engines worked backwards, where solid matter passed through itself, where energy dispersed in ways that violated every known law of physics. Their pilots, trained to handle 5-dimensional space, had no defense against an enemy that could simply decide how reality worked. "You see," Ambassador Harris said quietly to the stunned council members, "we never needed to master your way of using dimensions. We found a better way." He gestured to the tactical display where the Hyperion was systematically dismantling the laws of physics that the galaxy's greatest civilizations had built their technology upon. Commander Ray's voice broadcasted across all frequencies again. "This is your final warning, Dominion Fleet. The 7th dimension allows us to control how all other dimensions interact. Your weapons can't hurt us because we can change how energy works. Your shields can't stop us because we can make them protect against the wrong things. Your ships can't escape because we can change how movement itself functions." To demonstrate her point, she created a bubble of altered space around Stone's flagship. Inside that bubble, time began to flow differently, faster in some places, slower in others. The mighty ship's crew watched in horror as parts of their vessel aged centuries in seconds, while other parts reversed their temporal flow entirely. "Director Wells," Ray called through her command link, "permission to demonstrate our full capabilities." In the Luna base control room, Wells looked at Dr. Blake, who nodded solemnly. "Permission granted, Commander. Let the galaxy see exactly what humanity has achieved." The Hyperion's surface began to ripple with impossible colors as it accessed the deepest levels of 7th-dimensional power. Reality wasn't just bending anymore. It was being completely rewritten according to human understanding of dimensional physics. "Watch closely," Harris told the council members, his voice firm. "This is why we progress so quickly. This is why we saw things differently. And this is why your laughter was premature." Around the Hyperion, space itself began to fold in ways that even 6-dimensional sensors couldn't properly detect. The ship wasn't just moving through space and time. It was changing the very meaning of movement, space, and time themselves. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity hadn't just matched their technological achievement. They had revolutionized the very nature of dimensional physics itself. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. The beings who had laughed at humanity's primitive understanding now sat in stunned silence, watching the tactical displays show impossible things. The Dominion fleet, one of the most powerful forces in known space, hung motionless, caught in bubbles of altered reality. War Leader Stone stood on his flagship's bridge, his proud form now bent with the weight of understanding. "We," his voice shook, "we surrender. Earth, please, stop changing reality. We will leave your space and never return. High Commander Reed's silver skin had turned almost white. He raised all four hands in a gesture of peace. The Council recognizes that we may have significantly underestimated humanity's capabilities. His voice carried none of its earlier mockery. Commander Ray sat calmly in the Hyperion's cockpit, her neural link showing her infinite possibilities in the seventh dimension. Director Wells, she called, the Dominion fleet has surrendered. Should I return reality to normal in their sectors? In the Luna base control room, Wells looked at Dr. Blake, who was still monitoring the dimensional readings with tears of joy in his eyes. Proceed, Commander. Let's show them that humanity can be merciful, even to those who mocked us. The Hyperion's surface rippled one last time. The bubbles of altered reality around the Dominion ships slowly faded, returning physics to its normal state. The enemy fleet's crews found their technology working again, though many were too shaken to do more than run basic system checks. Ambassador Harris stood in the center of the council chamber, his plain black suit a stark contrast to the ornate robes around him. Now, he said quietly, perhaps we can discuss humanity's membership in the council from a more informed perspective. Reed floated down from his elevated position, no longer towering over the human ambassador. The council acknowledges that humanity has demonstrated mastery of dimensional physics far beyond our current understanding. He paused, looking at the other members who nodded in agreement. We would be honored to learn from you. That's the difference between us, Harris said, allowing himself a small smile. When we arrived, we genuinely wanted to learn from you. We saw value in your 5- and 6-dimensional technologies, even though we had already discovered something far more fundamental. You, however, chose to laugh. The crystalline beings pulsed with colors of shame. The insectoid representatives clicked their mandibles in embarrassed patterns. Even the most advanced races in the chamber couldn't meet Harris's eyes. At Luna Base, Wells activated the general communication channel. This is Earth to all Dominion forces. You are hereby ordered to return to your own space. If you ever threaten human colonies again, what you saw today will seem like a gentle warning. Stone's reply was immediate and humble. Understood, Earth. We apologize for our arrogance. Your species has taught us a valuable lesson. The Dominion fleet began to move away, their formations scattered and disorganized. Commander Ray guided the Hyperion back toward Luna Base, the ship's 7th-dimensional systems humming quietly. Through her neural link, she could sense the changes they had caused in the local space-time fabric already healing, reality returning to its normal flow. Humanity, High Commander Reed addressed the council chamber, has not just earned its place among us. They have shown us that our own understanding of dimensional physics was incomplete. The Council hereby extends an invitation for Earth to join not as a junior member, but as a full partner and teacher. Harris nodded slowly. We accept on one condition. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, optical sensors, and sensory organs of each representative. The galaxy must understand that no species is truly primitive. Every race has the potential to see reality in new ways, to make discoveries that others missed. The time of arrogance and mockery must end. The council members signaled their agreement, their earlier laughter now replaced by respect, and not a small amount of fear. They had witnessed humanity's power, the ability to not just travel through dimensions, but to change how reality itself worked. The age of galactic laughter had ended. The era of human innovation had begun.